Okay, we're going to assemble the servo and get it in the wing. I got all my parts laid out here. This is what will come in your package. It'll actually come with several servo horns, but I've chosen the medium length one. I'm going to use one arm, so I'm going to take a little pair of side cutters and cut one of them off and get it out of the way. There's no need for it. And I'm only sticking this on here temporarily to just make sure it lines up in my hole, which these servo trays were already glued. The blocks were already glued on them, which is kind of handy. Most of your kits you have to measure and mark these and glue them yourself, but these are already in place. So we're going to just put that on there. But what first we got to do is put the little rubber grommets on. Excuse me. There will be a little flat side on the back, and then around. I guess around is actually the back. And the reason for that, your hole is rounded at the back, so you want to put the flat side out. Just start to corner that in there, just like that, and push on it, and it'll go right in. But you want the flat side out here, or it won't go in all the way. Another thing on your brass grommets, when you put them in there, people tend to want to put them in from the top. That's not where they go. They don't go in the top, they go in from the bottom. And I'll tell you the reason why. If you put them in from the top, and then you put that screw in there, most of these go in wooden servo trays. When you cinch that down, all it's going to do is just squeeze this down, and the bottom end of that eyelet is going to cut into the wood, and it can weaken the structure of the wood. So what you want, your screws that go in here to hold those have a built-on washer on the head of them. You want the brass eyelet, or some of them may be nickel, silver, put it in from the bottom, not the top. And then when that's setting on your servo tray, it kind of acts like a washer, and it won't let it cut into the wood as bad. And you want a little bit of flex in this, just a tiny bit. That's what the rubber is for, is to absorb vibration. Vibration is a big killer of electronic parts in airplanes. So you're trying to absorb all the vibration you can through rubber mountings, and that's why these go in from the bottom. But very easy to do. We'll get these on here. Put my other grommets in, and then as long as these are touching mainly with the rubber, then you're utilizing all you can away from the vibration. So what we're going to do when we get ready to drill a hole for this, we're going to slide it in there, make sure how it fits nice and perfect. The arm centers up coming out of the hole. Now what we're going to do, and what I use, this is a big piece of heat shrink. It's like 1/2 inch. It's pretty wide. You want a spacer underneath that servo, so I use that to put underneath there. I just put it on the center and hold it, kind of squeeze it down, and you probably can't see this, but there's a space between the wood and the servo. If this servo is laying flat against this wood, there again it's picking up a lot of vibration from your plane, especially nitro engines or any kind of combustion engine. They pick up a lot of vibration. So vibration over time can cause these servos, motors, or the electronics inside there to go bad. So you want a spacer under there, and I use this thickness of that. It's probably a little too thick, but as long as you have room to get your screw holes lined up in this block of wood, and this one's going to be close on here, so yeah, it'll make it. Let me get my little drill out and my drill bit. That's too big. Usually a 1/16 drill bit is all you need on this thing, and I love this little Ryobi drill. It's a 2-speed, and it's a variable torque you can set on here. So we're going to put it on the drill holes. There's a little light on the front of it, which can be helpful. Now I'm going to hold pressure on that, and being sure that I angle my drill bit. I don't want it angled out where it's going to come out the side of this block. I want it to go straight in, or at the very least angled in a little. So I want to kind of center that in the hole, very gently let the drill bit do the work. You don't have to go all the way through the block, just pretty good ways down. Without letting that move, I'm going to do this one. We're going to go almost all the way through, and without moving, we'll squeeze it, keep it squeezed down. Let's go to this side. There again, being real careful of your angle. It's having a hard time holding it there. You don't want to angle this where it's going to come out the side of that block and break it. So be sure it's centered when you're drilling them in there. Be careful not to drill through and get your hand. Drill does have a reverse on it, and it works well. Alright, we'll blow our shrapnel out of there. Now what I'm going to do is start these screws, and you can use an electric drill, but sometimes that will go too fast and you'll bust your wood, so I'm going to use a hand screwdriver, a small bit on it, and we're going to start those, get them in the holes while I still have my spacer in there. I'm not going to cinch them down yet. Ooh, that one's going crooked for some reason. So let me go ahead and pull this spacer out and see if I can wiggle this around and get lined up here. That one's crooked. I'm going to have to kind of re-drill it here. Anyway, the less contact your servo has with wood structure on your plane, the less vibration you're going to get. They're making your servos last longer. Personally, I've never had one go out that I know of due to vibration, but I know they do a lot of times. So it's very, very important to try to keep your vibration to a minimum on this stuff, because electronics devices just don't tolerate it real well. Some worse than others. So, and we're going to cinch these down to where the rubber just starts to squish. We don't want to just over tighten it. We're just tightening these to where the rubber fitting there starts to squish down against the wood. So watch that closely. There's another reason you don't want to use electric on this. Better to do it by hand. I do have a little pencil drill I use a lot of times, like on the servos in the little light wood trays, but this is a hardwood, so it's hard to get in there. Alright, got that cinched down. This one, your servo horn will still come off even though it's on here. Okay. Alright, we got those on there, and you don't have a whole lot of play, but just ever so little, and the servo is not touching the wood, so we're good on our vibration. Anyway, that one's all ready to go, and all I gotta do now is tie my cord on here. These things come supplied with a string in here, and you just tie that. You can tie it in a knot because you're just going to cut it when it comes off, so it doesn't matter. Or you can use a slip knot if you want to. We'll put the end of that through there. And finish tying our knot in it. And what I like to do, so these don't hang up, is fold this over like that. And that way, well, sometimes it'll straighten out, but if it pulls and hangs up on that, just kind of tug it and that will bend over a little bit. Let's go out here and get our wire, and your solder joints will fit right through there. Okay, now we got to get this in line, get the wire straightened out, make sure this is not going to hit too heavy. I have had to go in here and relieve a spot on that little block, which I may end up, looks like I may have to do on this one, because the wire is going to hit real heavy on that block of wood. We don't want it chafing or rubbing a hole in it. They didn't leave a whole lot of room there. So what I'm going to do is take my razor knife and very gently shave off that sharp edge to where it's at least kind of flat, and that way it won't damage the wire as bad. I could put piece of heat shrink around that too to protect it right there, which I may end up doing because that's it's definitely going to be pushed up against that. So here, I'm going to pull this back out. Okay, that will give us a little bit of protection now to where that wire is going to be bent back like that against that wooden block in here for our screw. So now let's retie that on. I know a lot of this may be pretty boring, but it's really critical on losing an airplane. I mean, you can lose a plane over such little bitty minor things, and this is some of those little minor things that you're trying to take care of. You don't want any wires chafing where they can arc together or rub a hole in. Right now we'll go back out here, pull the wire back out. Okay, now that will give us some protection where that's going to be bent against that block of wood in there. So there we go, because it is definitely hitting on that pretty hard. But you have to have the block to put your screws in to hold that in place. So we've got that in place. Now what we're going to do, they're already pre-drilled here. We're going to take our same little 1/16 drill bit, very gently we're going to drill holes down in those blocks. We don't want to go too deep because we don't want to go all the way through the wing on this thing, come out the other side. Just deep enough for the length of your screws. Now what I want to do, and this is where, if my batteries aren't dead, my little pencil screwdriver works great, electric, but they may be pretty low and I don't have any more. It runs on AAA's. I use this to run them down. It's a little bit low, but it's working. And what I'm going to do is thread all these. And get in there. Don't want that moving on me. Tell you what, since our batteries are low on that, I am going to use this little drill. I'm going to put it on low and get a little fine screwdriver, because I don't want to run these up too hard. Run them down to where they almost touch. Back them out. And then alright, we'll lay that back over here. We're going to pull this out. Blow your sawdust out of the way, and we're going to take thin CA glue with a little sharp tip on it, and we're going to CA those holes. And you just want a couple, 2 or 3 drops down in the hole. And what that does, that hardens those threads. When you put these screws back in here, they will not vibrate loose. Now don't put this back in right away, because you've got a little bit of excess glue on top of your block. If I lay that tray back in there right now and screw it down, it's going to glue it to those, and then you won't be able to get it out. It'll bust your wood. So either wipe that down, or I usually just give it a couple minutes to dry and then come back and put them in. So okay, we have bound our receiver to our radio on the channel that I want it. I've named the plane Eagle 380. Before I put these back in and put the screws in, we want to make sure that's centered up. I am, for right now, just going to go ahead and use a Y harness on this. I will probably change it later to a different receiver, a bigger one, so I can put my ailerons on separate channels, and also my elevator halves on a stunt plane like this, especially if it's going to be a 3D plane. I like to do that and program it in my radio where each is all on its separate channel. That way it's easier to fine tune. But for right now, just to fly it some, I'm going to just put it on a Y harness. So I want to hook this to an aileron. Look at that. How's that for a guess? Alright, now this is the left wing, so a left turn will push back. So it's right, I don't have to reverse it. The arm is moving the right direction. So it is probably as close to center as I can get it. So I'm going to go ahead and put the screw back in it at this time. Tighten that down so we don't forget it. Okay, now let's pull the wire out of here as we go. Get it in the hole there. Oh, come on. There we go. Alright. Everything's working properly. Now at this time we can go ahead and put the screws in, and I can use this drill if I'm very careful. I don't want to over tighten them. So what I'm going to do is just run them down to where they're close, and then we will cinch them up by hand. And one thing, I'll probably end up having to take these back out anyway, because one thing I forgot to do, and I'll show you here in just a second, 9 times out of 10 your control rods are heavier than the hole is in the end of this servo horn. So I'm probably going to have to pull this back out and drill that hole out larger so the wire will fit in it. But right now we're just going to get it centered up. So get where you can see it at a 90 degree. Alright, we're going to go into our radio, and we're going to go to sub trim. And we want aileron. Uh-oh, I've already had something on this. I should have reset it. I may have to pull it out and move that. There's 0. Well, I'll tell you what, that's just about a perfect to 90 as it gets right there on 0. Go down to this elevator and change it. Apparently I've set something up in here at one point. So we'll take that back to 0. Alright. Alright, we got her centered up. Right, left. Left turn being left wing will push the aileron up. So that's pushing backwards. Your control horn will go right here. So we're all the right direction on those. Alright, we got that part done. Let's get the other one done. Okay, we're going to put our linkages together now. And I use just a little pair of mini vice grips to hold that. Clamp it down pretty good. Now when you screw these clevises on here, don't try to twist them on while they're open. That will, it'll bust them. You'll break them really. So snap them together and then twist them down. They even make a little wrench. I have one that I just hardly ever use it, but screw them down. And what I like to do is screw them down to where the threads come through on the inside just a little bit, and that gives you plenty of leeway to back it out or screw it on in when you're adjusting your ailerons. Seeing how we're doing this on a Y harness, that's where we're going to have to make our adjustment, is right here. I won't be able to fine tune each channel. Later on, I just don't have a receiver right now that I can use, a 6200 or bigger, that's more than 4 channels, so I'm going to do this for now. But now that I have them on there, then you can pop them back apart. I can get them apart here. I usually, well, what do I do with them? Hang on a minute. Here we go. You can pop them with your fingers, or I use a little pair of vice needle nose a lot of times to get in there. Alright, now what we're going to do is, got your back plate, comes off your control horn. We're going to take a razor knife and skin off the little burr that was on there where they were connected together. Now we're going to, one thing I want to do is my rubber safety. I want to go ahead and at this time slip that on here, slide it up onto the shaft part of your clevis. That way it's there and you don't lose it. Just leave it right in there like that, and then later on you're going to push it up here to keep it from coming apart. See what the book says on this. I think on the ailerons we use the outside hole, if I recall. Yep. So we're going to put that in there, clip it, and then what we'll do is I want to turn this on. Let me get my radio on. on my receiver again. Get my receiver powered up. Plug our aileron in. There we go. It's lit up. Everything's working. Now we're going to take our drill with our small 1/16 drill bit again. Actually, no, I'm going to use a 5/64 on this because the screws are going to go all the way through and into this back plate. I'm pretty sure. Let me make sure. Get my screws out of here. Find them. Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. They'll be machine screws. There should be 8 of those, but I only see 4, so let me double check the book. Sometimes these thread just into a block of wood with wood screws, and that may be what this is on the aileron. So let me check that right quick, and I'll be right back. Okay, yes, that's what we have. We have a number 2 by 3/8 little wood screw, sheet metal screw, so it doesn't go all the way through. I'm not real crazy about that, but although I've never had one come loose, I prefer to go through and use the back plate, but I don't have the screws I need to do that. They have to be like a number 2 machine screw, about a 1/2 inch long. I don't have any, so we'll do this, but you definitely want to put these in and take them out and CA the holes so your control horn does not come loose. So there, we're going to go back to the 1/16 drill bit because we don't want it too big. Well, I'll tell you what, that's going to be close. I hope it's... No, it'll work. Alright, now we're going to... We've got that centered up. Now we're going to lay our rod. I'm going to just stick it down in this hole, and I'm going to come through. Well, I can't, it's too long, but I want to get it. I want to have my aileron centered with the wing over here where it's square, and I want to come right square 90 degree off of that servo arm, and I also want my clevis line dead center in this gap between the main wing and the aileron. If you get that off one way or the other, it can bind on you, so you want them holes lined up right over that. So pretty much on this one, the edge of this control horn is going to go right to the edge of the aileron. So we're going to very gently drill a little hole. You want to really be careful on this one because you don't want to go through. You'll have to be patching a hole. So let's get this one intact. At least screw down just a little bit. We got to screw it in to thread it anyway. Okay, that will hold that in place. Now we're still centered at a 90 degree. So let's almost got off just a little bit. I may have to move that over. I'm going to move it just a hair, but at least it'll hide our hole. I let it slip on me before I drilled the hole. So let's move it over to right there. Okay, let's do this again. Now let's put it in that hole. We're not going to tighten it down all the way, but we are going to cinch it down most of the way. We want that threaded down in there anyway to put the glue in. Now that's, there we go, that's more like it. Rotate that just a hair. We'll drill this one, being real careful not to go through. Our other screw, we'll thread that in. Now, what we can do while these are, we can go ahead and, we don't want to forget to super glue these holes, but at this point what we're going to do is go ahead and make our mark here to put it through this. Now, I wish I could get it down. Well, I can. What I'll do is take my side cutters, except I want to use a larger pair. Some of these wires are pretty tough. I want to leave myself 1/2 inch of space there, but we're going to clip that off. Hold the end of this in your finger so it doesn't fly across the room. I've had a piece of this go through a side of a plane before, so be sure and hang on to that when you're cutting it. Alright, now we've got that cut to where I can lay it right down there against the arm. And at this point, you want to take a Sharpie, make sure your aileron is 90. What I usually do on that is take a clamp, put a clamp it to the wing and the aileron, that way it keeps it centered, you don't move it. Now we're going to lay it right on that, and we're going to mark dead center where that bends and goes through that control horn, or not control horn, but servo horn. Alright, now you can take it off to do this, or usually you can just do it while it's on there. I want to bend it right on that mark, 90 degree. I need to go a little bit farther. There we go. I actually go just a hair past 90 is what I do. Now I want to take my cutters. I want to leave about 1/8 of an inch sticking out on the other side. I want to cover that. Well, these are tough wires, so it doesn't hit another plane or something. Alright, now we're going to stick that. Alright, bent just slightly short. So here's where you take this. Now you can hang on to that. Yeah, it's going to be hard to do. So probably what I want to do is I can get a hold of this with a pair of pliers, or I can take it off. You don't want to twist this and break it. So I'll get a hold of this one up here. I want to back it out. I'm a little bit too much. So maybe yeah, I can turn it by hand. So let's go out one turn. Make sure it's 90. See where we're at. Probably another turn and we'll be good. Look at that. Perfect. Take our clamp off, and that is absolutely perfect. You can adjust this a half a turn at a time. Now we're going to take our little safety clip and feed it over that, come from underneath it and get under there and snap that little sucker up on there. Okay, there we go. We have an aileron installed and working. Well, that's set at 100% right now. We'll go into the book later and set the throws. But now at this point, when that's all done, then you can take this rubber piece of fuel line, is all it is. Slide it up over your clevis, just past those little notches. That keeps that from coming loose from any kind of vibration or anything. So there we go. Got the ailerons done. We'll move on. Okay, one thing. Almost forgot. I want to take these screws back out and put my thin CA in those holes. Or we're liable to lose an aileron in flight, and we don't want that. So later on I may change this. I may drill all the way through and put the bolts through it, but this does look better because you don't have that little plate on top of the wing. But it just kind of worries me, even though I've never had one come loose, still kind of worries me a little bit. So we're going to put about 3 drops of glue, 4 in each hole, probably about 4 drops. Just let it wick down in there. And we want to let that dry good before we put the control horn back on it. Alright, we're done with that. We'll put that on here in a minute and we'll be done with the aileron. Alright guys and gals, wings are completely finished. We'll set the throws after we get it all put together, but got the decals on, ailerons all ready, and we'll start on the fuselage.